Thucydides, an Athenian, chronicled the war between the Peloponnesians and the Athenians. He began his work the exact moment the conflict erupted, knowing that this collision would fracture the Greek world. For what lay before it was nothing but an empty prelude. The ancient past was small. The power of the present was colossal. Chapter 1. The Archaeology of Power. Thucydides begins his investigation by looking back into the dim, prehistoric past of the Hellenic landscape to prove how weak the ancestors were. He argues that in those primitive centuries, long before the golden age of the city-state, the land was not a unified nation. In that ancient era, it was an unstable wilderness of wandering tribes, a shifting mosaic of migrations where security did not exist. There was no overseas commerce, and there was no mutual trust between settlements. In those early times, no one dared to plant vineyards or build permanent estates, because there were no fortifications to protect them from invaders. Every nomadic clan knew that a stronger tribe could sweep down from the northern hills at any moment, slaughter the inhabitants, and seize the unharvested grain. The primitive populations tilled the rocky soil just enough to stave off starvation for a single season, accumulating no surplus wealth. They lived without capital, without maritime infrastructure, and without hope of long-term societal advancement. It was a historical state of absolute vulnerability, a stark contrast to the massive wealth that Greece would later achieve. As time evolved, the finest and most fertile plains, like Thessaly, Boeotia, and the Peloponnese, became the most dangerous places to live. The sheer richness of the soil sparked intense internal factions among the tribes, and these factions routinely invited foreign conquerors. Only the region of Attica, with its thin, rocky, and impoverished soil, remained free from foreign invasion because it was too poor to attract enemies. This stability allowed the early Athenian population to remain undisturbed, growing dense, secure, and advanced. The true evolution of Greek power began when the ancestors stepped off the land and onto the waves. Minos of Crete became the first master of the sea, colonizing the islands and driving out the lawless pirates. With the shipping lanes secured, the coastlines finally came alive with international commerce. Capital accumulated, and the modern fortified cities we know today were born. Thucydides strips the legendary Trojan War of its poetic myth, analyzing Agamemnon's force through the cold lens of logistics. He notes that even that famous expedition was small compared to modern standards, failing not from a lack of men, but from a total lack of money. Because they lacked capital, the early Greeks could only support a tiny army that was forced to waste years farming and raiding for food rather than fighting. After the fall of Troy, Greece fell back into a long period of internal strife, migrations, and slow colonization. But as municipal revenues finally expanded centuries later, tyrannies were established in nearly every city, replacing the old hereditary kingships. These tyrants built fleets and amassed wealth, but their vision was limited entirely by personal safety and local survival. Then came the great clearing led by the city of Sparta. Sparta had suffered more internal factions than any other state, but they established a permanent constitutional order, the eunomia. For over 400 years, the Spartans remained free from tyrants, creating an unyielding, static warrior elite. They stepped out from their borders and overthrew the tyrants of the rest of Greece, establishing themselves as the dominant land power. In the early 5th century BCE, when the massive shadow of the Persian Empire threatened to swallow Europe, the Greeks united in a fragile defense. Sparta took command of the land, while the Athenians abandoned their city, packed into triremes, and became an unstoppable nation of sailors. The victory over Persia shattered the foreign threat. But the moment the common danger passed, the alliance instantly fractured. The two saviors of Greece turned their strategic ambitions toward each other, drawing every smaller state into their respective leagues. By 431 BCE, two titans stood astride the world. Sparta, the master of land, and Athens, the absolute master of the sea.
Chapter 3. The Outbreak at Epidamns. Thucydides notes that the direct path to the global war began in a remote, forgotten corner of the Adriatic Sea. The city of Epidamns. A brutal democratic revolution broke out, and the local aristocrats were driven completely from the city walls. The exiled aristocrats allied with neighboring barbarians, returning to launch a devastating guerrilla siege against the city. Desperate, the besieged Epidamnian Democrats sent an embassy to their mother city, Corcyra, begging for military intervention. The Corcyraeans turned them away with cold indifference, refusing to involve themselves in the local factional war. With their mother city closed to them, the Democrats consulted the oracle at Delphi, who ordered them to deliver their city to Corinth. Corinth seized the opportunity with an aggressive joy, hating Corcyra because the Corcyraeans routinely humiliated them at public festivals. Corinth sent a garrison of troops and settlers to occupy Epidamnus and protect the democratic faction. When the Corcyraeans discovered that their original colony had been handed over to their bitter Corinthian rivals, they flew into a rage. They sailed to Epidamnus with 40 warships, demanding the immediate expulsion of the Corinthian garrison. When the demand was rejected, Corcyra launched a total blockade of the city, and Corinth responded by declaring war. The two local navies clashed at the naval battle of Actium, and the Corinthians were utterly crushed, losing 15 ships. But Corinth was a great Peloponnesian power, and they refused to accept humiliation from a former colony. For 2 long years, their shipyards worked day and night, hammering out hulls and hiring mercenary oarsmen from every port. Terrified of the massive coming vengeance, Corcyra realized its strategic isolation from the rest of Greece. They broke their historic neutrality and sent an urgent embassy to Athens, begging for an imperial alliance to save them from total annihilation.
Chapter 4. The Debate at Athens. In 433 BCE, the Athenian assembly was summoned, and the atmosphere was thick with geopolitical tension. The Corinthian ambassadors arrived at the same moment, warning Athens that interceding in this dispute would shatter the 30 years peace treaty. The Corcyraeans stood before the democracy and laid out the cold, strategic calculus of the Mediterranean. War with Sparta is already inevitable. They argued to the assembly. The Spartans fear your growth, and the Corinthians are goading them into action. If you allow Corinth to crush us, they will seize our navy and turn our fleet against you. Accept us, and 120 ships will stand with yours when the Great War comes. The Athenians debated the treaty over two separate, massive assemblies. In the first meeting, they leaned toward the Corinthian argument, fearing an immediate breach of the peace. But in the second assembly, the long-term strategic calculation of the empire won. They could not allow the Peloponnesian League to absorb the naval power of Corcyra. Pericles devised a brilliant, legally defensive compromise. They signed a defensive treaty rather than an offensive alliance. They would only fight if Corcyra itself, or its territories, were directly invaded by Corinthian forces. Athens sent a tiny, symbolic force of 10 warships to the island, with explicit orders. Do not engage unless a landing is attempted.
Chapter 5. The Battle of Sybota. The massive Corinthian armada sailed north, meeting the Corcyraean fleet at the Battle of Sybota. Thucydides notes, it was a chaotic, brutal slaughter on the water. The largest naval engagement ever fought between Greek states up to that time. The Corcyraean lines began to crack and buckle under the immense pressure of the Corinthian numbers. 70 Corcyraean ships were disabled or sunk, and panic spread through the fleet. The 10 Athenian warships hovered on the wings of the battle, trying to deter the enemy without breaking their defensive orders. But as the rout became total, the Corinthians pressed their advantage, slaughtering sailors in the water and rowing hard to crush the final reserve. The Athenian captains could wait no longer to protect their new ally. They threw their ships into the center of the fray, clashing their bronze rams directly against the Corinthian hulls. Peloponnesian and Athenian forces were now actively killing each other on the open sea. As the Corinthians reformed their lines for a final charge, 20 new Athenian warships suddenly appeared on the horizon. Fearing a massive Athenian trap, the Corinthians backed water and retreated from the island. The battle ended, but the peace was shattered, and Corinth vowed absolute vengeance against the empire of Athens.
Chapter 6. The Crisis at Potidea. The hatred between Athens and Corinth did not linger solely on the waters of Corcyra. It instantly flashed northward to the city of Potidaea. Potidaea sat on the narrow neck of the Paline Peninsula, holding the gateway to an entire region rich in timber and silver tribute. The city's political status was a volatile bridge. It was a colony of Corinth, but a tribute-paying member of the Athenian Delian League. In 432 BCE, Athenian intelligence discovered a dangerous shadow diplomacy operating in the northern theater. Perdiccas, the shifty king of Macedonia, had broken his alliance with Athens and was secretly negotiating with Corinth to spark an open rebellion. Athens struck first, with preemptive diplomatic violence to protect its imperial interests. They sent an ultimatum to the Potidaeans: tear down your southern sea walls, give hostages to the democracy, and banish your Corinthian magistrates. Potidaea refused, secretly sending a delegation alongside Corinthian envoys to Sparta to beg for help. The Spartan authorities gave them a solemn, sacred pledge. If the Athenians march against Potidaea, we will immediately invade Attica. Backed by the iron promise of Sparta, Potidaea declared open rebellion against the Athenian Empire. Chapter 7: The Blockade. The rebellion spread across the northern coast, and Corinth acted with desperate speed. They sent a volunteer force of 1,600 hoplites under the command of Aristeus, who slipped into Potidaea just before the Athenian fleet arrived. Athens unleashed its imperial response, deploying a massive force of 3,000 hoplites under the command of Callias. The two armies collided outside the city gates in a furious, bloody battle. Aristeus' wing of Corinthian select troops smashed through the Athenian line, but the rest of the rebel allies were utterly broken by the main Athenian phalanx. Callias, the Athenian general, was killed in the brutal hand-to-hand fighting, but his army won the field and drove the rebels back into the city. Athens locked the trap shut by building a thick stone wall, cutting Potidaea off completely from the mainland. Potidaea was sealed behind a brutal, choking, and absolute blockade from both land and sea. Inside the walls, the food supplies began to rot, and the inhabitants looked toward the horizon, waiting for the Spartan army that had promised to save them. The direct proxy conflicts were finished. The actions of Corcyra and Potidaea had left the sacred peace treaty in ruins. Chapter 8: The Complaint of the Allies. With its colonies starving under the blockade of Potidaea, Corinth could bear the strategic pressure no longer. They sent a fiery summons across the Greek world, calling every state with a grievance against Athens to gather at the Spartan capital. The Megarians arrived, screaming that Athens had passed the Megarian decree, an economic embargo that barred their merchants from every imperial port. The Aeginetans arrived secretly, whispering that Athens had stripped them of their treaty-guaranteed independence. The Spartans summoned the allies to speak before their assembly of citizens. The Corinthian envoy stepped to the center of the stone circle, launching a brilliant psychological assault against the passive character of the Spartan state. "You Spartans suffer from a fatal flaw!" the Corinthians cried into the crowded hall. "Your own honesty makes you trust the words of others, leaving you blind to the true nature of your enemies." The Athenians are innovators, quick to form designs and quicker to execute them. They view a peaceful rest as a hardship, and they conquer only to crave more. The Corinthians turned their fury directly onto the slow-moving Spartan magistrates. "You hold back your armies while your alliance rots around you! You promised to save Potidea, yet you have allowed the Athenians to seal it behind stone walls. If you do not cross the border and invade Attica now, you are abandoning your allies and betraying your sacred oaths." Chapter 9. The Arrogance of Empire. An Athenian embassy, present in Sparta on completely unrelated public business, requested permission to address the assembly. Instead of apologizing, they stood before the assembly with absolute imperial arrogance, issuing a cold warning rooted in the structural laws of history. "We did not acquire our empire by violence," the Athenian envoys declared coldly to the Spartans. "Three massive forces drove us to hold what we gained when you abandoned the Persian War: fear, honor, and self-interest. It has always been an unyielding, universal law of history that the weaker must be kept down by the stronger. We are no different than any power that came before us. Do not vote for war based on the anger of your allies. Our walls are unbroken. Our navy is supreme. And if you break the treaty, we will strike back with absolute fury." Chapter 10. Archidamus' Warning. The Spartans dismissed the foreigners from the room to conduct their internal secret debate. King Archidamus, a man of vast military experience and slow, deliberate thought, stepped forward to warn his young soldiers against the madness of an immediate war. He laid out the harsh mathematical reality of facing the Athenian Empire. Against men who rule the sea and live 1,000 leagues away, how can we fight without a navy? Archidamus asked his citizens. We have no public treasury, and our ships are non-existent. Our hoplites can ravage their fields, but the Athenians will simply bring in grain from their empire via the sea. Do not think this war will be decided in a single summer. We will pass it down as a heavy, ruinous curse to our children. Let us build our resources, seek foreign alliances with Persia, and wait 2 years before we strike. Chapter 11. The Decree of War.
But the absolute pride of the Spartan warrior elite could not brook delay, or appear weak before allies. Sthenelaidas, a radical ephor, stepped to the center of the assembly, ignoring the complex economic and naval arguments of the king. His speech was short, brutal, and definitive. "I do not understand the many words of these Athenians," Sthenelaidas snarls to the crowd. "They praise themselves at great length, but they have not denied that they are destroying our allies. We have no money or ships, but we have allies who are being slaughtered by their empire. Do not let Athens grow any greater. Do not abandon your brothers. Vote for war, Spartans, and march with the gods of the covenant." Sthenelaidas forced a vote by division, refusing to accept a quiet murmur of hands. The roaring shout for war, won by a massive landslide among the citizens. The Peloponnesian League officially declared that the treaty had been fractured, committing themselves to a total mobilization. Chapter 12. The Secular Curses. Thucydides pauses his narrative to emphasize that the true underlying cause was the terrifying growth of Athenian power and the panic it struck into Sparta. All other disputes were secondary to the structural inevitability. To stall for time while they prepared their armies, Sparta sent a series of diplomatic embassies to Athens, demanding they clear themselves of ancient religious curses. They demanded the banishment of Pericles, whose family line was linked to the ancient execution of Cylon's religious rebels centuries prior. Athens fired back with equal historical venom, demanding that Sparta clear themselves of the curse of Tainarum, where they had slaughtered Helots' suppliants. They demanded vengeance for the curse of Athena of the Brazen House, where the Spartans had starved their own war hero, Pausanias, to death inside a sealed temple. The diplomatic negotiations completely degraded into a farce of religious mudslinging, as both sides prepared for the field. Chapter 13. The Final Mandate. Finally, Sparta threw down its true, impossible ultimatum to the Athenian democracy. Sparta desires peace, and peace there may be, if you restore independence to the Greeks and disband your empire. The Athenian assembly gathered for the final decision, deeply divided on whether to yield to avoid a total war. Then, Pericles, the undisputed first citizen of the democracy, stepped to the rostra to lock their strategy. "Athenians, my view is completely unchanging," Pericles declared to the packed square. "We must make no concessions. If you yield on this small point, they will immediately command you to yield something far greater." Pericles laid out his revolutionary, unyielding defensive blueprint for victory. They will invade our lands and burn our crops. Let them, he warned. We will abandon our farms, retreat inside our great walls, refuse land battles, and look after our navy. Our ships will strike their coastlines. Our empire will feed us via the ports. And because we have the open sea, we cannot fail. The assembly approved his strategy, rejecting the ultimatum and offering only legal arbitration. Book 1 concludes, the diplomatic lines are severed and the treaties are torn into ash. The 27-year nightmare of the Greek world is about to release its apocalyptic fury.